Something more?
Yes, consciousness. And I know that has to do a lot with our mind settling to receive these beautiful gifts. And
well, let's define consciousness, and let's find a new definition for it, because we've been bantying that about for a very long time. So everything is consciousness.
yes.
And there are varying degrees of consciousness, but consciousness is nothing without perception. And perception can't exist without focus. And focus can't exist without intent. And so consciousness is really a focusing with some intent, isn't it?
Yes.
If you are focused with the intention of hooking up with that broader perspective, then you've got the roots of that tree, and then the leaves, which are more roots of more tree. In other words, this never-ending process of becoming. You can't live here without coming to new desires, and new desires summons new energy. But just the fact that the new energy is being summoned doesn't mean that you are in the receptive mode of letting it in. In the beginning, that we called this gathering the Science of Deliberate Creation. We thought it was really well named, because science meaning it was ongoing, new discoveries. Deliberate meaning you were doing it on purpose, not just blundering into it and then not understanding what had happened. Really paying attention to what makes what happen and how it feels when it happens, so that you can be more conscious and deliberate and focused as you are moving along. But our human friends who are already bent in that direction of wanting to make work of everything and wanting to put a little bit of struggle in everything to make it worthwhile, you became too aggravated about the idea of creating your own reality with your own thoughts, and your own thoughts began to worry you. You started sucking them back, trying to get them back before law of attraction got hold of them and caused a manifestation that you didn't want. And so then we began putting more emphasis on the art of allowing what you have already created to flow nicely into your life experience. And so we like so much that you are humans sitting in a room like this, steeped in an understanding that you are so much more than these physical beings, that you are extensions of so much more, and that not only are you expanding through the life experience that you are discovering here in this contrast of time and place, but that the roots from which you have come forth are also expanding because of what you are doing here. We like it so much when you come to realize that you, us too, but you are on this leading edge. You are on the leading edge of thought. You're not here trying to catch up with what someone else has already caught up to. You are pioneers exploring and creating the new. You are the edge of the expansion. And, so reflect back on the last hour just for a moment in general. And relax and breathe a little bit and remind yourself that you really got it, even though right now you can't remember what you got. Just acknowledge that you really did get it. You really did get it. And now think about how, if this, and it is the leading edge, and it is. If this manifestation is the leading edge, so that means all that is non-physical that we've been describing is all pointed toward this manifestation. Are you feeling how all of that equals this? In other words, you can't have this without all of that. But this is the leading edge. Everything that exists, every consciousness that exists is pointed forward with all of you. You're not here trying to figure out what somebody else already figured out and measure up to it. You're taking it beyond. And even when you don't know you're doing it, you are. The contrast that you're living is causing you to ask for new. And when you ask, it's always coming forth. So we don't have these conversations with you because you need to hear this in order to get it right. You can't get it wrong. We're not having these conversations with you because you need to know something different or do something different in order to contribute in the way you intended in this conspiracy of evolution that we are all about. You can't help but do that. But we're here to remind you all of the satisfaction factor that you deserve, because it's supposed to be feeling good to you. This expansion is supposed to be feeling good for you. You're not here paying some price in order to evolve and expand. You can't cease evolving and expanding, and you're supposed to be enjoying it. Otherwise, in your human form, you are missing the expansion. Source is having it. But you know how every now and again you catch a little glimpse of something and you feel that exhilaration just moving all the way through you, that's you feeling what we're feeling in this same moment about the same thing that you're focused upon. Whew. That's what you want, moment after moment after moment. Consciousness, blended consciousness. You consciously aware of the consciousness of your inner being and on the same vibrational wavelength as the consciousness of your inner being, sharing the same frequency and momentum of the consciousness of your inner being, and being right here fully forward and fully aware and fully conscious of the manifestation that you are on the brink of as it explodes into the furthest most reality that exists in all of the universe. That's creation. Yeah. Really good. Enough?
Thank you.
Really good.
Why is everyone not seeing that as we see this?
Because they don't have to see it to contribute to it, and because they have become lost in the observation of conditions and feel lack in the absence of conditions that they seek change in. They've sort of lost track of the way that it works, but they're coming back into alignment with it. And no worries, because in the moment that they reemerge back into non-physical, they'll be back in the full swing of it. And when you are reborn into your physical bodies, you are in the full swing of it again. This is the same question as, why are some people willing to be unhappy? That is the question you just asked us. Why are some people willing to be unhappy? And we say, because they have a flawed premise. They believe that the manifestation brings the happiness, and since it hasn't happened yet, they choose to feel unhappy, and then they block themselves from the happiness that they would have along the journey, along the way to the manifestation. So we come along and we say, you can. Volume doesn't help. Esther translates our enthusiasm into volume often. You cannot help. You get to be or have or do anything that you desire. Nothing off limits. And what's so exhilarating to us, we've been describing to you for so long about the way the process works and how the launching of your rockets of desire creates a vibrational reality, and how you want to get into this vortex, we said to you, until you were tired of hearing it. How do I get into the vortex? And then we began explaining to you that this vibrational reality exists, and you can exist with it or apart from it, and the emotions that you feel indicate to you which you're doing. The happier you are, the more in vibrational alignment with your vibrational reality you are, and the more you are going to be a witness to the thoughts turning to things. So it's going to be joyful, 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 explosion into greater joy. But you can also be apart from it, which does not feel good. But these are choices that you have, that we want you to be aware that you have. And so you have to sometimes start in a general place where you realize that you can get general enough that your happiness will return. And once you get general enough, even on subjects that are really bothering you, so that you allow your happiness to return, then you can get back in sync, and then what the unhappiness contrast caused in the vortex can now be realized by you. In other words, you can't live a miserable enough experience, no matter how miserable it is or how much angst you've felt from it. You've contributed to your vortex in a mighty way. But now you've got to figure out a way to get access to that vortex. And so the way we are describing that now is that vortex is in the process of manifesting. But you must be the realizer of the manifestation, because your vortex cannot manifest apart from your conscious realization of it. Does that make sense to you? You created it. You've got to match up to it. Your consciousness, your focus, your realization. That's what turning thoughts to things is. It's realizing. It's turning it to reality. It's focusing it into realness. And so your question about the vortex became loud and clear to us. Abraham, I sort of kind of get this, but how do I get my money out of the vortex and into the bank? How do I turn those vibrations into reality? How do I turn vibrations to thoughts, which are manifestations? And how do those thoughts become things? And so that's what we're really emphasizing with you these days. You got to be willing to just maybe accept on trust or faith enough that happiness is the way you feel when you're in that alignment. And unless you're in that alignment, you're not going to consciously witness the unfolding. And we just don't want you to be so ready to skip over the incremental conscious unfolding, the incremental, the pieces of it, the idea that comes, the new way that gives a little to you. We don't want you to yearn for a manifestation and miss the delicious unfolding. And so we know that if we could get you just for a little while to contemplate what it feels like to be the manifester of the idea rather than of the material object, the manifester of the concept rather than the material object, the manifester of the emotion, the manifester of the state of being, the manifester of the alignment. If you can be the manifester of being in vibrational alignment with your inner being, ooh, happily ever after, happily ever after, happily ever after, with spikes of ecstasy sprinkled all through it. Happily ever after, happily ever after, happily ever after, happily ever after, happily ever after.
Yes.